Israel's powerful trade union has called a nationwide strike for Sunday, following reports that troubled drug giant Teva Pharmaceuticals will axe thousands of jobs. The head of the labor union says the strike against the, quote, shameful cuts would last for several hours and will affect the entire public sector, as well as banks, the stock market, air and road traffic services, and all of Teva's facilities. Teva is the world's biggest manufacturer of generic drugs. It's set to announce a cost-cutting program with 4,000 jobs expected to go. Here in the studio is our economy correspondent, Westropp-Evans. Asha, welcome. For viewers, some background. How did Teva get into the dire straits it's in now?
Look, Elon, this came down to three key factors. Firstly, it was the loss of the patent for Copaxone. Copaxone was Teva's great earner, representing about 50% of profit and 20% of revenue for Teva Industries. The patent for this expired in 2015. And
the patent for the drug that brought in half of its revenue?
Precisely. Expired in 2015. They tried to extend their patent by getting an additional patent based on long-term acting elements of this drug. This has been challenged in courts throughout the world and so far has been struck down in every court. 4 out of the 5 places where it has been challenged, it has been struck down, this additional patent, and it's under challenge in the 5th. So one of their great earners, the pillar of their great earners, has been cut from underneath them. Second is the acquiring of activist generics, something that Teva did in 2015 for a $35 billion, taking on a huge burden of debt. This debt has come at a time when the market is absolutely softening in generic pharmaceuticals. Teva is taking on massive burdens of debt and they're just simply unable to keep up with payments in this. There's a massive price squeeze at the moment in pharmaceuticals as competition rises and Teva simply can't keep up.
I mean, Asha, this sounds like a basic failure of management. Just take the patent issue. If they know the patent is going to expire, then surely instead of waiting until the very last moment to appeal to have it extended, you prepare by manufacturing other drugs. I mean, is it not as easy as that?
No, look, it's not quite that simple. Teva works within the generics market. Its aim is to take on generic versions of drugs where patents have expired. They have these patents that allow them to develop into more, into big earners, but they generally try and get the small, high turnover, small profits model is the model for Teva. And when there's such a price squeeze, it's not simply a case of just pumping out more drugs.
I mean, Teva is an Israeli company, but it's also, a global pharmaceutical giant. Where does it go from here, having lost the patent that produced half of its revenues? How does it recover from that?
Well, that's exactly right, Elon. Teva is seen as an Israeli company, but they're starting to broaden themselves more internationally. The hiring of their new CEO 6 weeks ago, Kåre Schultz, he's a Danish CEO, formerly ran Scandinavian pharmaceutical companies, a big name in the pharmaceutical industry internationally. He's been brought in to gut Teva, effectively, to gut it from the inside, and particularly at the place where there's most space to gut, which is here in Israel. And this is causing huge backlash from the Histadrut, Israel's biggest labor union, which is saying that this flagship industry of Israel, Teva, is now being taken out from under it, that the original founders of Teva, who were all seen as great patriots and great proponents of Israeli economy and Israeli growth, wouldn't have stood for this, but that this new outsider, this new core is taking it out, cutting it out from under the feet of Israelis, and that's why they've called for such a massive strike.
So, Asha, very briefly, what do they hope to achieve with these strikes? They want Teva suddenly to become profitable overnight and be able to afford these jobs? I mean, what's the game plan here? Briefly, please.
Look, this is the reality. Teva needs to make major restructuring. They need to make cuts. The weight is there to be lost in Israel, and this is where they're going to make the cuts. What's going to actually be achieved from this strike, other than a sense of solidarity? It's hard to say.
Okay, Asha Westropp-Evans, economy correspondent, thank you very much.